Probably one of the most amazing action films to date is John Wick 4. It had a $100 million budget, which allowed them to fly around the world with multiple teams, have incredible stunts done, cars, props, all the actors included, the wardrobe, and of course, it allowed them to get awesome cameras, lenses, and lighting. The thing is, these sorts of lights, or the amount that they had for this film, are usually pretty much out of reach for filmmakers like us. And by us, I mean the indie filmmaker or YouTuber or content creator who has a few $100 left over at the end of the month and they want to buy a light to create something cool. In this video, I'm going to go through 2 shots from John Wick Chapter 4 and recreate them on a budget using lights that cost less than $200 each. John Wick is known for its mixture of cool and warm tones. Like this shot here, where John is lit with cool light and there's red in the background. Or this shot here where he's lit with green and yellow is in the background and accenting him from the side. Dan Loston, the cinematographer for John Wick 4, is known for lighting with exaggerated colors, often mixing steel blue, cyan, or green tones with warmer colors like orange and red. He did this for the film Crimson Peak, which is actually what won him the job for John Wick 4. The way John Wick 4 was lit was by utilizing various practical lights, which were actually things like the Astera Titan tube lights put inside housings so that they could match the scene of the film, and of course using off-camera key lights. The shots I've chosen from John Wick 4 I chose because they have interesting color contrasts. I mean, there's a lot of cool shots to choose from, this is a cool film, but these 2 shots in particular I felt were interesting, had cool color contrast, and were different enough from each other to show to you guys. So the first shot is this night scene where John is lit with a cool light and has red in the background. And the second shot is from this kind of rave warehouse chase scene where he's lit in green and also has a yellow backlight and accent light on the side. To get started, let's clear some space. Okay, now before we set up anything, we need to analyze the shot and figure out how it was lit. Starting off with this shot, it's pretty clear to me that half of John's face is in almost complete darkness, so the side of his face that is lit must be done so by a light with some spill control. I found out through research that the director Chad Stahelski always wanted to have both of John Wick's eyes lit, as he's the protagonist of the film. There's also a bit of a blue tint to the light, so that must mean that the key light is a cooler temperature, like let's say around 8,000. But of course we can play around with it. The last part I'm noticing is the background. It's pretty obvious they're using tube lights here, and I know they used Astera Titan tubes which can be controlled wirelessly and fit inside larger tubes to fit the film's design. But Astera Titan tubes, they're like $900 per tube, which is a little bit out of budget. But don't worry, I have a solution for that. Having set up my key light, I immediately realized I have a problem for the RGB tube for the background. These are magnetic, and I have no metal that is magnetized to be able to attach these onto. So I thought I'd try one thing. Okay, so I just need to swap the C-stand for something else. Having figured out that my C-stands are magnetic, I'm gonna switch out the C-stands that are holding up my key light for a heavy-duty light stand instead. It's made of like this cheaper metal that kind of feels plasticky, but anyway, that's not magnetic. So we're gonna use the C-stands, for which I have 2 actually, one's just smaller than the other, as stands for the background lights. Not really ideal because they will be in shot, but because they'll be out of focus, I feel like it could still work. And if anything, I could argue it's set design. Now, obviously the lights in John Wick are much longer, but for the sake of keeping things within budget, I'm just gonna allow this. I've realized pretty quick that this isn't really looking right. If you guys look here, so one thing I was noticing was that the key light needs to be a bit further away. For one, for a little bit less spill, but 2, there's just too much red happening on my face from the backlights, and there isn't any red at all on John's face in the shot. So I figured as well, if I tried turning the red lights around, but then we don't get the same look as in the shot, which is making this a little bit tricky. And I'm thinking, oh, duh, turn down the tube lights. With everything now in its place, let's break down what is what and where everything is. So first things first, probably the most important thing was camera placement. The S5 Mark II with the Samyang 35 to 150mm, I've placed quite far back towards this wall so I have as much space and depth to work with. Now you may be thinking, why not shoot lengthways along my apartment? One, it means moving more furniture, but two, because the wall in this shot in John Wick is quite dark, it looks more like a blind on a window or something. I'm not 100% sure, but one of those two things. I needed to use one of the darker walls in my apartment, and this is the darkest wall. Otherwise, it's a white wall, and well, there's more gray, but this is also the biggest dark gray. Is this gray? Then the most important light, the key light, what we're using here is a CINEMATOGRAPHY CX100, and this is a nice little compact light that I'm really enjoying so far. And this whacked onto an Aperture Light Dome Mark II with a grid on the softbox. Good little key light setup, which provides nice soft wraparound lighting. And I have the key light set to 6500 Kelvin, so it's nice and cool. Not too cool. It could possibly be a little cooler, but with a little bit of color grading trickery, you know, I can make it look more blue in post. And of course, we've got the two red lights for the background. Now these are two Nanlite PavoTube 6C Mark IIs, long name. They're set to 10 because we want the red in the background, but we don't want it to be so strong that it then bleeds onto me in the shot. Because in the shot with John Wick, you can see there's a lot of red and it looks pretty prominent in the shot, but to achieve this and not have any of it spill onto him, they must have had it set lower than it appears on screen. I'm very much aware, by the way, these tubes look nothing like what the red tubes look like in the John Wick shot. But like I said, they're tiny Astera tubes, so you work with what you got. Okay, the setup's looking pretty good. Let's see how they compare. This one's a tad trickier because there's people in the background and John Wick's moving through a scene. There's a lot more depth. And of course, I'm in my apartment. So there's only so much I can do here. As we did for the first shot, let's analyze and break down how I think this shot was lit. We can see here the key light is obviously green, which should be easy enough to replicate. The next big part is this accent light and the backlight. These are both an orangey yellow kind of light, and I'm thinking I'm leaning towards more of an orange, so achieving this sort of color will be easy enough to do with both the backlight and the accent light. Okay, let's set up the lights. Put it this way maybe? Now let's set up the next lights. A problem I'm having right now is that there's very clearly a shadow behind me by this lampshade over here, and there's not much I can do about that, unfortunately. I need to figure out this shadow being cast by the camera, and I think I just need to reposition this light to point the light down at an angle, so maybe it's not coming straight from behind this camera. This isn't meant to be on my face, it's only meant to be on my hands, so let's shift the side light just a little bit further forward. Let's shift this side light forward a bit and see if we can get something closer to what is in this original shot. Next thing I need to try is adding a bit of haze to see if we can fill out the background a bit more. There's going to be one obvious difference of there is no one behind me. Something doesn't look quite right. It's like the side light is just way too soft on my hands, whereas in the shot with John Wick, it looks a lot harsher. So I'm going to use the CX100 as the side light instead and put the CM15 on the back. And it might need help, but we'll see. Okay, the lights are rearranged. Let's give this a shot. I'm liking the look, but I think the backlight needs a little bit of help. So I'm going to throw these two PavoTubes in the background to try and elevate the backlight. I'm coming to you from my hotel room in Miami. I'm currently on a work trip and I'm editing this video, and I'm here to tell you I fucked up. Shot number 1 has a very specific issue. I made a point talking in this video saying how the director used Rembrandt lighting to light the second eye and have both eyes lit because John Wick's the protagonist of the film, blah, blah, blah. We can also see the use of Rembrandt lighting. I found out through research that the director, Chad Stahelski, always wanted to have both. And the thing is, he doesn't use Rembrandt lighting. He just uses an eye light on the second light to keep John's second eye lit, the one that's in darkness. There's no Rembrandt lighting there. So that's mistake number 1. For shot number 2, the biggest mistake, and ultimately, unfortunately, where I would say I failed recreating shot number 2, is the shot is way more yellow than the original shot from John Wick 4. And I think this is the reason why. What I did wrong here was this backlight you can see here, I added more yellow light to it. And this filled up the entire room with yellow light, which was a huge mistake. What I should have actually done was set at least one of those tube lights to green to match the key light, to fill out more of the room space with green. This probably would have helped to balance out the overall tone, because you can see here in the original shot that a lot of the wall is green and it's only really a light source in the background that is actually yellow, not a large portion of the background that is yellow. So yeah, I just wanted to chime in here from my hotel room whilst I edit this in my underwear, having a Tony's chocolate bar that, hey, whoops, I made a mistake. Owning up to it, definitely learned a lesson, and I'd say this was a really good filmmaking exercise that I can wholeheartedly recommend to you guys. Lighting is such an integral part of filmmaking, shown so clearly in the lighting for John Wick, which is known for its almost neon-like lighting and contrasting colors. Good lighting can define a film like it has for the John Wick franchise. In regards to the gear I used today, I can see where GN are coming from with this light, and I do appreciate it. I like it when companies make good lights that are also affordable. Is it perfect? No. But I haven't been hindered by any of its imperfections, and I genuinely enjoyed using this light for this video. Let me know some of your favorite films just below that subscribe button, and I might recreate a couple of shots from those next. Don't forget to hit the like button, and there should be some videos for you guys to choose from around me for you to enjoy. I'll see you in the next one.